The subgenre of slasher movies is probably one of the most well-known and popular of the entire horror genre, with many beloved franchises like Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween. And as a lifelong horror fan, I have many favorites. Greetings all you movie junkies and entertainment lovers, and welcome to another top 10 video. Today we're going to be counting down my top 10 favorite slasher movies. So starting at number 10, we have Child's Play 2. The Child's Play franchise is of course one of the most popular in horror history, and it was pretty difficult to decide between this and the first film, both of which I think are pretty much on par with one another. But I think I slightly prefer the second one, mainly due to the fact that we get a lot more Chucky action in this, and the great dynamic between Andy and Kyle, combined with the awesome third act in the warehouse, being not just the best in the franchise, but also one of the best in slasher movies in general.
You've been very naughty, Miss Kettlebell.
And then at number 9, we have Scream 2. Pretty much all of the Scream movies have been great up to this point, with a big part of that being the series' self-referential style and format, but Scream 2 to me is still the best of all of the sequels, as well as just being one of the best horror sequels in general, with it building off of the first film's meta commentary and applying that to sequels in general really works well, and a lot of it still manages to be just as relevant now as when it first came out.
Number 1, the body count is always bigger. Number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate. More blood, more gore. Carnage, candy.
And then at number 8, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is of course one of the most well-known and infamous horror movies of all time. So to attempt a sequel, even one by Tobe Hooper himself, is definitely an uphill battle. But to me, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 gets pretty close to matching the original movie, whilst also having its own unique look and feel. Tobe Hooper knew that he could not just simply replicate the first film, so it was decided that things would take a bit more of a dark comedy route while still keeping the manic, crazy, and bizarre factor of the original film, making it a very worthy sequel that is still underrated to this day. And then at number 7, we have Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the 7th and ultimately final installment of the original Nightmare on Elm Street series. Is a brilliant and unique entry that has been really grossly overlooked for decades, and still doesn't really get the respect I think it deserves, especially considering that it kind of paved the way for the meta commentary of the Scream franchise. Whereas the previous Nightmare movies blurred the lines between dreams and reality, New Nightmare takes things a step further and blurs the lines between movies and reality, making it both stand out amongst the rest of the franchise and making it a fitting ending to the series overall.
Miss me?
Number 6, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street. The original Nightmare on Elm Street was pretty revolutionary when it comes to slashers in general, with it of course introducing more supernatural elements and having a killer with more personality, in addition to just starting one of the most iconic horror franchises in history. I probably would have had it higher on the list if it were not for the weird, ambiguous, compromised ending between Bob Shaye and Wes Craven, combined with the somewhat lame effect of Freddy's defeat, and ending on that bad effect of Nancy's mom being dragged through the window. It's just an ending that has always left me with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth in an otherwise perfect horror film. But despite that, I still think it deserves its place and recognition as one of the greatest slasher movies ever made.
Well,
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
And then at number 5, we have Jason Lives Friday the 13th Part 6. The Friday the 13th franchise is overall one of my personal favorites, as I pretty much enjoy almost every single entry, and to me, Jason Lives is easily the strongest and most entertaining of the bunch. And for the longest time, it didn't receive the recognition and appreciation that it deserves, essentially paving the way for Scream later on with its slight self-referential humor that was pretty revolutionary for slasher movies at the time. It was just everything that I want when it comes to these kinds of movies, and still remains as my favorite of the Friday the 13th franchise.
Why'd I have to go and dig up Jason? Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
And then at number 4, we have Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors. My personal favorite installment of the Nightmare franchise, and arguably the one that was responsible for making the character of Freddy Krueger so iconic. Much like Jason Lives, this one to me has all of the best that the franchise has to offer. The best characters, the best storyline, the best effects, the most memorable moments, and of course the best of Robert Englund as Freddy. This version of him in this one to me is really the perfect balance of personality and fear. Whereas the first two films, Freddy had very little personality, and in some of the later films they kind of made him more over the top and silly. Nightmare 3 to me feels like it gets the balance just right, making it the best of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and one of the best films the genre has to offer. Then at number 3 we have Halloween. There's not much that I can say about Halloween that hasn't been said already a million times before, if anything. And the whole slasher genre as a whole probably would not exist or be as prominent if it were not for the success of this film. And it's pretty incredible just how much it really influenced the genre, especially when you look back and see just how many tropes and cliches were really started and taken from this movie. There's a good argument to be made that it may in fact be the most influential horror movie that's ever been made. So its relevancy is more than enough to have this film high up on the list. And then at number 2 we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A film that is just as important as Halloween and practically just as influential, although the look and style you get from witnessing this one has been proven to be much harder to recreate and format in comparison to Halloween. And it's pretty impressive just how much this film stands out even now 50 years later, and its legacy and importance to the genre as a whole more than speaks for itself as not just one of the best slashers, but also as just one of the best horror movies ever made. At number 1 we have Scream. I don't know if there's ever been one particular movie in the horror genre that's really radically changed the rules and format as much as Scream did. I think it's pretty easy to forget just how much of a game changer this was when it came out. And the whole concept of characters within the movie being aware of horror movies and tropes was still a pretty new concept, with some previous movies like Fright Night, Return of the Living Dead, and Jason Lives being the exceptions. It's a movie that's massive success quite literally caused the entire genre to become smarter as a whole, because of everything it did so well. And the Scream franchise overall, to me at least, is probably the most consistently great horror franchise that's ever been made, with the original absolutely being one of the all-time greats in horror history and one of the best slasher movies ever made. Well, there you go guys, that was my top 10 favorite slasher movies. Feel free to jump in the comments down below and let me know what your top 10 all-time favorite slasher movies are. So until next time, be sure to consume as much entertainment as humanly possible, and I will see you in the next video.